Hi everyone. Um, Today I just need to fully just get something off my chest, off my mind. I've never had to get anything off my chest. I've only had to get things out and off my mind. Once I talk about them, I no longer think about them. So it's therapeutic. So I guess I'm just slightly going crazy because, well, not crazy, but the level of subjectiveness that controls reality a little bit overpowered, say. Um, there are so many things that are simply fake, not real. No, just they just live inside your mind. Um, and so some examples, and these are really big, important things. Money is fake. Money is, well, at least in or 1970, whatever. It was on the gold standard, so at least there was some slight perception of it. But money really is just a perception of energy, of power. It's really a form of magic, really, when you look into it, because it has no intrinsic value. It's paper note numbers on a screen now, really, so it's not even tangible. It's getting more and more conceptual. Now, you hear someone has $1 million versus they have $1 house or something. Um, it's a little bit different because the house is tangible, while that wealth and that money isn't. And well, I mean, this is just basic finances, right? Because the amount of money in the bank is never actually enough to actually pay out all of its customers. I realized that I kind of started my path down to awakening to that. But everything from stocks to crypto, everything really is driven by the power of perception. And so that, along with history, how most of history is being propaganda, the whole COVID thing, have to look at the world and say that we live in a world now where children have myocarditis. A coincidence, just a coincidence. Um, and materials, even materials. This might be a weird thing. Not it's not the materials, but I'm trying to find the right word here. But manufactured goods, anything that is not a raw material, that is also uh, fake to a certain extent, less than all the other ones, obviously. But in the sense that, what's an example? A really specific example would be, I don't know, okay, this AT2020 microphone. This AT2020 microphone is made out of raw materials, of stuff, of physical matter. I can touch it and I can dig into it, and it works by the science and magic of technology. But in order to create this AT2020 mic, someone had to first invent the first microphone and then iterate on it with this design. And that's the point. It was design. Someone had to think in their head, what if we made a really good microphone and it worked like this by manipulating materials in the world to do this? And so now I'm able to speak to you through that idea, the power of perception and the power of innovation, creativity, and discovery are the things that shape the world. So this microphone is real, and I can touch it and speak into it, and it functions. But what about before this was created? Let's go back, I don't know, I guess 50 years when this didn't exist. How did this get created if it didn't exist? As some engineer somewhere drew it on paper and designed it. And even before they drew it on paper, the reason they drew it on that paper or on that napkin or whoever, however the story goes, is that they had to think of it. And they had to have a dream. And that thought came into their mind through happenstance, magic, and so now we're kind of getting into the higher ideas of, well, what is consciousness? What is thought? Where do these thoughts come from of things that don't exist? And if you, I guess, look at the typical, Greek Platonic philosophy in the realm of forms. And so Plato essentially thought that the realm of forms is a place where every physical, tangible object is derived from this place. And so you get into the Greeks' idea of God, which I would not necessarily call Zeus. I'm not sure exactly the context if mystery schools were forbidden because they thought of this stuff, but all Western thought, philosophy, law, a lot of it is based on Greece, and I think a lot of its religion is too. And I think the idea of a monotheistic, formless God was a specifically Greek idea, and I guess Hebrew, and in their tradition, but the Greeks definitely either influenced that, or at least from what it seems, they're very first adopters of Christianity. And it's this conceptual framework that has been unchallenged, undefeated for millennia, and only recently it's been kind of molested and tarnished. And well, I don't want to get into all that, but you know that it's there. So what I'm trying to say is, actually, we can go back even further than the Greeks as to what I'm talking about, which is the teachings of Hermes Trismegistus, or book of Hermetics, named after him. And the very first principle, and perhaps the most fundamental principle, is mind over matter. And so, through the examples I just gave you, money, history, a lot of medications, actually, just in general about healthcare. Did you know, I heard this recently, that cough medicine and cough syrup is artificially flavored to be bitter. It's actually naturally somewhat sweet, and they actually make it bitter to give you the idea that it's actually helping you. So even medicine, that aspect is fake. And there's also, a lot of medical trials include placebos. In fact, a lot of people have been known to recover through placebos. And a friend was telling me about the medieval practice where, the best they had for doctors in those days, they would do an all-in-one package where they would give you like an herb for your rash, some kind of physical, tangible medicine. But then they would also accompany it with a prayer for you to say. So there was a psychological, spiritual accompaniment with the material ointment. And so it was a dual purpose thing. And I think in a lot of ways, the best doctors, honestly, are psychiatrists as well as practitioners. And I think there's a spiritual side to really good doctors. I was very fortunate to have one really good doctor for a while who, basically, the only issue I really had was that I was losing my hair, and I was like, oh, this is not good. And so I went to him, and he said, oh, don't worry about it. Like, it's not an issue. And he says, if you really want to, you can go to the guy who does Trump's hair and find out. So, he had a sense of humor, and he also was able to contextualize things in a way that he said, look at, so and so and so and so who live these very successful lives, and like women and people don't really care about your hair. It's very much only if you do care and you're insecure about it that it becomes an issue. And it was kind of this, oh yeah, okay, and those kind of words just making me feel good. That just worked. And so again, a lot of that perception, mind over matter, a lot of it is I don't know, it's perceptional. And so in the context of this idea that I'm just looking now at the world, especially today, as a complete function of mental thought and perception. In the Bible it says, in the beginning there was the Word, and the Word was God. The Word was with God, I think. And the Word is not a singular word, but at least I read it as the Word, as in the concept of word, which includes kind of all words, in the way that you can say, you know, the animal includes, like, is that a specific animal? No, it means a conceptual, all the animals. You know, the animal is the chicken, the animal is the dog, the animal is whatever, and the word is a Gestaltian zeitgeist conglomeration of language. And a further connection between Hermetics and Christianity, that they both kind of agree that the world is a formation of thought, that when God designed and created the world, it was thought and spoken into existence, like a computer language that didn't involve writing it down, is how he created it. If you could just project computer code through your mind or something, and someone could receive it and be like, oh yeah, no, I know how you feel, like a meme. That is the substance and basis for all reality. And I don't want to go too far into this just to nail down the point, but Terence McKenna made a really good point that Babylon, America, Napoleonic France, Disneyland, Paris, maybe not modern Paris. What else? The Vatican, the Mecca. He called all these places virtual realities. And he said what he meant by that is that it's not a computer game, but when you enter these places, they have a distinct idea around them. So similar to entering a church, yes, a church is made out of brick and mortar and stone, or painted glass and whatever. But the expectation is that your mind changes when you enter this space. And architecture actually does play a pretty big, large part in this. The Roman Colosseums, pantheons, all the ancient old world structures, when you are inside them and are viewing them and are around them, for me personally, my mental state improves a lot. I really, really enjoy it. And there's something about these places that are formed out of stone, but also ideas. And so he also said even Disney, which is like a fake European fantasy land, just imported Brothers Grimm's tales. Being in Disneyland is a certain vibrance, a certain love, a certain energy, certain vibration signature, if you want to call it, that says this place is not like other places. This place is special, and we want you to feel not just welcome, but they have the magic, the Imagineers, the whole concept of that, and so yeah, so these places, they're made out of materials, but the idea and expectations of what you should think and feel inside these places differ radically. Even though they're made of the same materials, there's different expectations, and again, enforcing the idea that that the mental perception king more than the physical. That's why you're paying $200 to go inside into a whatever theme park in Disneyland. That's it. So that is perception. That's mind over matter in a nutshell. And I kind of feel like ending the video here, but I wanted to kind of get to the point. So here's the point. So once we've established mind over matter is a reality, and I'm just kind of fully, again, digesting it. And that's the thing about ideas. They come and go. You hear them a week ago, and you think about them a week later, and you're like, you know what? I think he was onto something. I think maybe I will try. Like, no, don't go to Japan. Don't. If I say don't go, you'll go more. It doesn't matter. Again, it's all about existence. Anyway, here's a symbol, and so I just yeah, okay. So this is all very interesting and nice, but how's it practical? So I have a symbol here that I can use to change my mental state in order to be more productive, happier. I guess I'm definitely more productive. I'm not sure. I mean, it lets me do things so that I am happier. That like, oh, thank God I got that done with procrastinating on it. But this is kind of my symbol that oh, I need to hold on. I gotta bring it up here, don't I? So we essentially have three different symbols that have been overlaid on top. And so the reason I'm showing you this is because when I project or visualize or embody this symbol into my psyche, it has an actual effect on how I the world, and it's kind of trying to be the ultimate symbol. It's the symbol of symbols, the king of symbols, because it represents the most important things in the universe, which are love, truth, and reality. And of course, it's interesting because it's very difficult to get to reality or get to a higher reality because it's like essentially the same thing as consciousness. Um, and again, consciousness itself is a weird thing to tackle. It's similar to thinking of when you're a child and versus now, and how your mind was forming and you knew things like, okay, don't kick your brother, don't steal the ball, or late for school or recess or whatnot. But you're not. It's almost like that person almost doesn't exist anymore. And well, they do. I think it's your kind of inner child thing, which is different. That's more psychological. But essentially, yeah, this is supposed to just alter your thinking to a far more productive state. For me, this is the most real symbol that you can create, and it's honestly I don't like it because it's very basic, but that's just for educational purposes. I'm going to redesign this anyway. Let me just walk through this with you guys. So first of all, we have the cross, and so obviously the cross is Christianity, and that's already like an apex for most. The Christian cross is a symbol of ultimate love, and familiar or unfamiliar, but you know the whole Christian idea is that through love, any pain, any sacrifice is possible. And it also is interesting that it's in the shape of a person. It's the most generic human experience. It was the instrument, the crucifixion and the death, but it's also, you know, very similar to just a person with their arms and legs and head. And that thing in and of itself is sufficient for most people. That spiritual world and the power of perception is worth doing things, worth being cringe. It's worth posting random stuff on the internet, because for as many people that might make fun of you, there's gonna be tenfold that are inspired by what you say, potentially, or they laugh at you. Who knows? But it's about being genuine. And so anyway, the cross is just the ultimate expression of love. Now, the second symbol that I layered on top here was the circle. and the circle is supposed to be a sun. And so the sun specifically that I wanted to put here was the Schwarzson Sonnenrad, and that's well, it's a an old Nazi symbol, and it was associated with the esoteric orders of the. I'm not sure if it was SS. That sounds. It was kind of like the NARB, and so the black sun essentially is the ultimate symbol for truth because it represents condition of the European continent, place of long winters, and it's funny that it's the area of Europe is a place that was kind of dependent on the sun for life, and really it was a lot of sun worship because it was one thing that sustained and gave life, and essentially it was in the north where it was so rare that it was kind of the apex of worship, but it essentially represents the environment in which pain and suffering and objective truth and and struggle kind of culminate in this idea that nature is an aspect of our condition. Love can surpass nature and even corrupt itself. There are plenty of examples of Christians or people in general doing things out of the name of love that are detrimental to themselves and the world. People get into bad relationships. They get into, they sacrifice so much of themselves that they're left to sustain the world and the things they care about. And so the black sun is kind of them saying, like, look, this is, you have a nature. This is who you are. And as much as you might want to help or love or trying to kill you, there's a certain level of resistance to that. And so I would really characterize the sun, not philosophy of Nietzsche, a kind of nihilistic Übermensch kind of idea. And that's always been in contrast to the Christian doctrine, which he saw as weak and coddled in a slave mentality. And so there are kind of a feminine, masculine aspect to this as well. And then they really act as kind of a duality. And I think it's funny that Nietzsche did write "Thus Spake Zarathustra" as a pseudo Bible, or like almost a parody of the Bible with all of its symbology and esoteric symbolism and parables and things like that. So, and for a while, I've always thought if we could just combine the aspects of love and truth into an integrated aspect and stop all this needless fighting between Nietzsche's objective truths and the perhaps subjective loves of Christianity, that we could create a mindset or philosophy that is the best of both, really. I think Nietzsche's "Thus Spake Zarathustra" was distributed to soldiers in World War I and II on the side. I don't know why. It's not a good book to read. Sure. But yeah, I have to look back at it. But that was kind of where I was for quite a few years. I thought if we can just combine Nietzsche and Christ into a integrated idea, and you might think, well, what's the practical application of this? Are you saying that you just want to do bad stuff and you want to justify it? No, it's more so that people are doing things today out of the name of love that are self-destructive, and I'm trying to find a way to make them stop that. So some practical examples would be, it's it's fine, and I mean, these are all extremes, right? And it's really the middle path, and a lot of things are the true way. It's fine to obviously support your family, whatever, and get a job and pay for them, obviously. But if you are a person uh, forced and paying child support, and the kids are drugs and time wasting video games, and they're not progressing or doing whatever, then to further fund that kind of lifestyle is not to their benefit. You're giving them money and attention and things out of love, but they are abusing you. They are not reciprocating. And a lot of people will just keep giving to the point where they will extinguish themselves. Actually, I just realized I zoom in. No. That zoom in? No. Never mind. So that's one example. Another example is people um, sacrificing their social status or going on social media and praising some kind of what do you call it, virtue beacon, virtue signaling, that I'm a good person, when really it's not true at all. They just want to have the love without the consequences. People just want to say nice things and feel nice things without actually doing anything about it. And so that kind of inactive, lazy spirituality or love that has no action behind it really is fruitless. I mean, literally, no fruit was produced from what you did. So yeah, you want to address or combine the objective truths and the subjective loves, and create a world in which, I mean, and a lot of Christians are guilty of this, that they're willing to, I don't know, spread the word of Christ, but they're also willing to allow like other religions or Islam on, like, oh well, we can't be mean to them because that would be rude, when instead of like challenging those ideas. And so instead of challenging and having any kind of competition or masculine charge or anything in that, they just kind of fall over and die, which is a self-destructive. So there's a lot of self-destructive behaviors associated with ultra emotional ideology, and people think that if they just follow their heart, they will be satisfied. So yeah, you need an objective truth and subjective love combined. And so the final aspect here is a triangle, and I tried to draw like two of them, but I think so the triangle, this was the last missing piece, really. And the triangle is, I was inspired by the Greek tetramagon. Sorry, I don't know how to say it. And essentially, it was Pythagoras actually came up with this idea, that the idea that God is a triangle. And within the Pythagorean theorem, which actually I think that's different. I think that's about angle stuff. But essentially, you can write the Fibonacci sequence, which is just a rediscovery, honestly, of this Greek idea, where you go 1, and then 1, 2 will make 3, and then it's like 1, 2, 3, and then so on, and you essentially fill up the triangle with these numbers, and each previous set of numbers, if you sum them, creates the next value and set of numbers. I'm not sure if I'm explaining that correctly, but if you just want to understand what it is, just Google the Fibonacci sequence. Again, another aspect of, you could say, fake history, since it's literally Pythagoras's work, and Italian guy was, hey, look at this. And whether that was intentional or not, I'm glad that we are aware of it. Anyway, so why is this interesting or important? Well, the idea is that pinnacle, or the apex of, again, love and truth, as these two pillars trying to together to be the apex of human experience, are forming a kind of triangle. And so, what is the apex of God? The apex of God, reality, is a revelation of, it's Genesis, what it is. Once you have that singular digit, once you have one, then you can have 1, 2, and then it begins propagating and growing. And this is where the golden ratio comes from. What's something else as well? The golden ratio or the golden curve or something, but also known as phi, the number 1.16, which I'm not sure if I'm confusing that with something else, but that's the rate at which most natural plants and body parts and everything grows at. It's all proportional to that. You rarely have, well, not rarely. I mean, sometimes you do have a lot of asymmetry in nature. But the idea is that you propagate the initial value from there, and then it just runs. So, but the issue is that how do you get that initial digit? How do you get this initial value at the apex? And that's really where God and the rest of the world. So you have love and truth. They're two pillars. And so these two things are trying to merge together. These are the two most important things, love and truth, in our existence, right? A lot of people will say, what's the highest principle you can follow? Some people will say truth. Some people will say love. I love asking this to certain people. And so they kind of intersect what is reality. Reality, around like that, is, if, for example, for truth, you can say, well, it's true that this country exists on this map, but it used to be this country, and it used to be called this, and it was conquered by this country, and etc. And so there's a whole slew of different things that create whole different types of truth. So what is the highest truth? What, and then it asks, well, whether or not this country has a certain name, what is the nature of a country? What is a country? Not just a concept, just an idea. And yeah, it is pretty much a boundary drawn on a map with a flag and a language and whatever. And then you can keep thinking about what a country is until you get to the idea and apex of country. And then you have the emotional love side where I don't know, like the exploration of emotion might be similar to a book about a relationship. That might go from friendship to something deeper, to something deeper, to something eternal. And that could also be the idea of a country because of ideas like nationalism, the French Revolution, that people would be willing to fight and die for their country. So, anyway, so these two things are attempting to at reality. An example is that someone might know the truth about something, but they feel very different about it. And so an example might be, I know that I know that fast food is bad for me. Like, that is a truth. I know that is obviously, but I like eating it. So humans are just inherently kind of hypocritical in a very large sense. And so people think, well, if you know it's bad for you, why would you do it? Just because I like it. And so this is an interesting thing. I don't know how many animals, at least, or other organisms in the universe, participate in activities that are bad for them, and they know it, but they do it anyway because there's something else that it provides and gives them. And so you have a paradox there. You have a paradox of, and forgive the product placement, the paradox of McDonald's, because even though it's not good food, it's not good for you, you probably shouldn't eat it consistently. McDonald's has an idea and a branding and a logo and a feeling around it, and its food, while not nutritious. It's still tasty. And so McDonald's is a kind of reality. It's a reality of a contradiction between love and truth, of these two things that are seemingly opposites, and it creates a existence. McDonald's is not an idea. It is a store where well, a place where you go and you buy the thing and you eat the thing at the store, and that's what you do. It is a experience. It is a real living, kind of living thing. And so that is reality. Someone had to think of the idea of the restaurant. You can see that documentary, I guess. They need to have an idea of how it would function, how it would work, and what it would be like as an experience. And they manifest and project that into the real world, and that idea becomes a reality. And so reality at this point, what we are trying to attain. Let's get this corporate. So this area here, that is what the apex of reality. And so the apex of reality are ideas and where ideas come from. So one example would be, or one way to view this is, this is the limit of human consciousness. I mean, and Jesus does a lot of this too, where you have, you have the holy word of God manifested in material form, which also happens to be flesh. I don't know, God could have came as like a lamb, a literal lamb, or a soda machine, or he could have come as a lake, or like a mountain, like a living mountain. But he decided to come as an actual living person that poops and eats and does all these other bodily things. It's very kind of demeaning in a way, and I understand why the Muslims find this kind of demeaning. Like, oh, why would God be a man? That's like so gross. I'm gross. I don't like myself. LOL. So I'm kidding, but so yeah, I understand how they mean like that, but it's part of the human experience, because the idea of the Western canon or civilization is that the spirit of something, it's the reason why we don't murder disabled people. We should we should phase them out. I don't know. I mean they do say Down syndrome becoming extinct, which I guess is a good thing. But the reason we don't murder disabled people is because they essentially have a nature and a substance within them. It's the idea that they have a spirit and, well, a soul and potentially a spirit, that there is something completely unique about them. There's something in the randomized game of life that makes them fully unique, and it's why we don't just, and there's something, and because we kind of descend from God, it's the idea that even if it's a corrupted bad version, there is still an unseen, unhidden value in that human person, that human experience, and that their suffering eventually has a meaning, and there's a consequence to their suffering and payout, sort of way to say that by believing the soul and the spirit, that they are, through their suffering, not entirely useless or worthless. That there's something of value there that we can't see. And that's the idea of what a spirit is. There's something there, we can't see it, but it has power over us. And again, this is, back to mind over matter, or the immaterial having more influence in the world than the material. At the same time, though, that's ultimate love, but also at the end of the day, ultimate truth. And so this is where you can come into conflict. I'm in conflict too. If and I think most people, if they knew that the child in their womb was going to be disabled and live a very painful existence, most people would, if it was in their power, they would terminate it. And it's hard because there are arguments on both sides. It's like, in a very spiritual whatever way, that life, that existence could have an unknown, unseen value that you can't quantify. And so it is a very kind of soulless, harsh reality to take, to destroy it, because you might be destroying something that is, whose value is unknown and uncharted and could do something to change the course of the world. But at the same time, there is the reality of dealing with them. And there are certain people, let's say, that I see that they've made some bad decisions. And so while they are living their life of living their life of poetic suffering, at the same time they need to live. They need to pay the bills. They need to go to the washroom. They need to do all the boring stuff you also have to do, and that is just integrated into the fabric of their reality. So, and maybe as I'm saying this, I'm actually revealing something of my own nature, that there's kind of an expression where, by Dostoevsky, who said, well, no, he didn't say this, but it's something like, to be human is to suffer, and something like I prefer my suffering over the comfort of the world. And there's something about that I found very interesting and profound, and fortunately very relatable. I find this to be more of a Protestant idea, as I was raised, which is that if you're not suffering, you're not doing God honor. And it's this idea of too much pleasure, too much pastime will lead to your ruin and destruction. If you are lazy and idle, you will fall into, I don't know, the hands of the devil, or your estate will be stripped from you. And then it's the paradoxical, oh well, you suffering is, wonderful. It's part of the human experience. But for me, I'm almost it's a weird impulse that I can only describe as that if someone were to give me something really nice, I would feel guilty for taking it. And I'm not sure if that guilt is right or wrong. I'm not sure if that guilt is, oh, I don't want to be a hedonist, essentially. But at the same time, I also want good things for myself. And, I mean, you want to have you want to have a roof over your head. You want to have all those typical things. So it's really, it's a conflict again of love and truth, and of those two different natures of those things, and how we approach it. Anyway, I forgot what I was saying about what I want to talk about right here. So this area right here, this is I'll just call this miracles. In Calibri 12-point font. So this is the miracle zone. And why is this the miracle zone? Because a miracle, someone's talking about this idea of how to do a magic system in a fantasy world. And magic usually evolves as an expression of rules, regulations, chemistry. And magic really functions more like technology. The more you write about it and the more you think about it, that there are limits and rules, and sort of a set of predictabilities. If you say the magic word for fire, then fire appears. And if you need a special crystal to make that happen, then you need that crystal. And so you have all these limits now. The aspect of miracles, at least in the Bible, is that something that is not possible. It is not possible for this thing to happen. Oh, we only have 2 magic crystals, but we need 3 to do the fire spell. And if something has to happen. So really it's the author of the universe constructing something or intervening almost and breaking the rules. The point is that miracles break the rules. And the miracles are also beginning of new things. They are Genesis and I guess Revelation. And this is actually the second Hermetic teaching, which is as above, so below. And so this area right here in the center, this miracle zone where the spiritual realm and the physical realm meet, that is where you're going to get your best ideas. That is where you're going to get your aha, Einstein light bulb moments. Never mind Einstein, he was a hack. And so these are the areas where the genesis of new things, that first number, we have 1, and then I think you have 1, that's 2, and then you have 2, 1, and that's 3. 3. No, I know. I forget how the Fibonacci sequence goes. It's like 3, 2, 1, 5, and it just keeps growing. So anyway, so that pattern of growth, it needs. How do we get this 1? The answer is that the genesis is a miracle. So I heard it once described as Martin Cabello describing pregnancy as entrapping fourth dimensional frequency light beings within the father's sperm, mother's egg, combined into a nucleus of contained light, spirit, flesh, soul design trapped within the quantum existence of reality from the spiritual realm. And he went on this tangent on this ranch, and it's pretty funny, but it's I think it's very true. You are taking something that is light, and I'm using light here as almost as an analogy, where light is something that in the scientific world is both a wave and a particle. They can't actually define it. It breaks definition because while light has a wavelength and whatever, and it seems like, oh, hey, this isn't physical at all, it can also be bent by things like black holes. It can also be refracted and reflected through windows and surfaces. You learned this in IT, where if you have a bunch of windows and glass, the Wi-Fi signal will get kind of a little bit messy when it goes through those surfaces. It can still go through them, but it becomes a little bit deprecated, essentially. Same thing with radio waves. The farther you get away from a radio tower, it gets all garbly and scrunkled. That's a word. And so, yeah, light is a good analogy for the anomaly of what we are describing here. The light, it's a person is a physical being, but also a spiritual being. Two remotely opposite things, or distinctly opposite things in a single combination. And really, you have the ultimate male, ultimate female coming together, becoming inseminated and growing into this new thing. This initial one is essentially like birth and pregnancy, and a new being has been created, and they've been suckered from the spiritual world as a being of light and energy and spirit down below. This isn't an argument against abortion, or it might be. I don't know at this point. But yeah, the idea is that you've summoned something that is beyond reality. This idea that, and really, I think that a lot of people might not appreciate or get this, because my main issue with the current day philosophy is that it operates on John Locke's logic, which is that humans, when they are born, are a blank slate, that there is no inherent nature to them. And from my own experience, that's just abhorrently false. There are certain aspects, sure, that, okay, how you raise a child is going to determine their outcome, absolutely. But you can't teach a child to like math. And you can't teach a child to not like math if they already do. And people who become, their real life calling, people who become musicians, scholars, theologians, professional degenerates, there is something in their being and their nature that isn't accounted for. It's this idea that if you just send someone to the right school and just teach them a certain way to be, and just put a big sign that says "be good," that suddenly everyone will be good, and it completely ignores the aspect of human nature, which we're at a point of cultural insanity over, because we are ignoring such a fundamental aspect of our condition, of our existence. And so, yeah, but the basic idea is that when you have someone like a Michael Jackson, like, but the question is, could you train someone to be Michael Jackson? And it's like, well, I'm sure there's a lot of imposters, imitators, so like an Elvis Presley, a certain actor, whoever, even certain bands have tribute bands and stuff like that, but they're never quite exactly the same, because there's some talent or something about them that you can't pin down why it is so good that they do that, or why it's so popular. But the fact that they do it and do it so well, and it can't be taught, is what is the aspect of miracles. That there was a man and a woman who created a person who went on to be something that everyone beloved. I think a lot of these artists, creators, whoever, they could do fine in any other business. They could, be an accountant or whatever, but their essence essentially was fully embraced, fully ensouled, and so they were able to become a value that no one could imagine. No one ever gets together and has a child and says, "Oh, I hope he's," they might say, "Oh, I hope he's a doctor or an engineer or something." No one ever says, I hope they're Kurt Cobain or Linkin Park. I hope that they are, no one expects their, no one can predict or know what their children are going to be like, uh, in the terms of their. And so that's why this is so interesting and powerful and important and good to internalize. But yeah, this is the spiritual world, this is the physical world, and when they meet, miracles happen. And this isn't just people being born, by the way. This is, I would say, thoughts. Thoughts, ideas. You ever have a thought that pops in your head and you think, where did that come from? I didn't. That's where it comes from. It comes from the spiritual world. So, and I like to think that, humans, when you really boil it down, humans are just strands of, even before the zygote, they're just strands of DNA that collide. Well, not collide, but, they unzip and rezip and replicate. And that little and so they collide in this double helix or whatever, and those double helices are made of proteins, and there's just four of them. There's there's Gattaca, there's GTAC, and just a combination of those four permutations that make up the entire human person. So when I say that a human is just the written word of God, or a simple idea that you had one afternoon, I should make this video. Yes, humans are just words. They're just Gattaca. They're just ideas. They're just thoughts, really. And the thought happens to manifest into a flesh and blood person in this case. Some thoughts manifest into this microphone or a funny coffee cup with meme on the side, or literally everything that I'm looking at right now. This house, these windows, desk, everything here was thought into existence. I was thought to existence. Kind of crazy to think about. Was God cooking with when he made me? I don't know. Except that I was gonna make this and tell you all about it. So that, I think that's good for now. I mean, I could keep talking on about this. I think I'm actually gonna quickly look up here how to. Yeah, you know, the ancient Greeks, they just were mathematic heads, and they just found a way to realize that there's a weird underlying nature. Like, oh, we can build buildings consistently if we understand math. So you're telling me if I scribble these little numbers on this piece of paper, I can build a gigantic temple that will be standing for the next, 1,000 years? That's pretty cool. So they kind of thought, well, obviously this is nature, underlying nature. And you know what? I think I might be wrong. I don't think it was Pythagoras. Not you see. Anyway, I might be wrong that it was Pythagoras, but I'm pretty sure it was Pythagoras or some other Greek mathematician imported the food. Anyway, in any case, I think that's kind of enough for now. I think I've wasted enough time, and yeah, these are my schizo thoughts, and bye. Take care.